Blog Talk Radio.
Peace, family. It's your boy Lukey over here at Life Food, Long Island, coming to you live at 5. Featuring the incredible, amazing Dr. David Jubb. Dr. Jubb, being with you here, it's like a dream come true. Thank you.
Oh, it's so amazing. Yeah, I'm so glad for us to be connecting in with everyone today, for another show. It's so incredible, isn't it? I wonder if it's possible for all of us just to really be able to imagine that concepts that we've been talking about, some of the concepts, of course, people did talk about and educated others about. And, of course, if you go right underneath the Atlantic Ocean, you can see grid patterns and places where symmetrical layout of a very large metropolis of Atlantis can be seen. Very deep underneath the water, filtered over but part of Atlantis. And we've been doing a series of talk about Atlantis and the 4 suns that have passed, this being the 5th sun that we're in, and these eras, and the native recollection of the year in story form here, and the way that consciousness was taught in times gone by. So will we continue on with our story today a bit where we are, or?
That's why I'm here.
I think our last show we were sort of talking just a tiny bit about the Atlantean tongue, and they had a word for what, and their word for what, of course, which our word what is derived from, is Urmt. And Urmt is what, and then time, the subject of time, which is when in English, was Urem. So it's very close. It's incredible, But all these sounds are combined, of course, of what, when, and what, when. In Atlantean tongue, this is the sound made, you see, of a star as its revolution. It's being made. What, when? It has a Doppler sound, sort of like a speeding up and a passing and a slowing down as things have passed, and a pressure as things built up and then released as it passes, and all sound sort of has a shape. And then we were just talking a little, saying that of course we always have a 14-day life food nutritional fast and cleanse, and we recommend people do things to get a pattern. And then we were just talking a little bit about back in the time gone by, of course, in Atlantean days, You had fertility cults and things going on, and then there was a bit of a fusion of new insight from, you could say, perhaps civilization of Atlantis, and then they were influencing the cultures of things at the time. And then the shorter cycle is 7-day period, and then a pattern is created twice, to make a cycle. And the fertility cults, of course, even took advantage of that to let boys not have the natural pattern, and so that was a strict sort of sexual mutilation of the boy on the 8th day to prevent the boy sort of from having a patterned experience of being whole. And then the Atlanteans did this, were called Yu, and everyone was sort of a Yu who really wasn't a seafarer, or that really had this eye awareness. And then there was a lot of influence of Jupiter, and there was all sorts of silly sort of things a bit going on. But and a lot of this all has been used to control people where they've been. Because all of this is sort of done to enforce ritualized learning, and either it's possible to be creating someone who's original within themselves, or phantoms and things could have been produced in disembodied sort of beings, or like professors could be sort of considered disembodied sort of beings, and McDonaldizing people to be all right-handed, but and didactic sorts of studies versus more experiential types of learning. But a person could be sort of more fully controlled, and the boys could be more fully controlled to be man-aged, to do menial tasks, and because this was really not an Atlantean practice, anyone who did this was called sort of them, as we've been talking, or you. And then over time, of course, this has been derived to Jew. During Greek times, the U, the Y, which is a symbol of found in Atlantic tongue, sort of for yoni, as we've been talking a bit about, and all the practicing of the fertility cult religions, sort of simply just was called U's, with this Y, and then also the shape of the letter U also was applied to this. As and so sounds, it's so amazing, reach really back quite a way. And in Atlantean times, Tchit is the sound that the tongue translates into teacher in English, Tchit. So it's so close, it's incredible, of course. Tchit in Atlantean tongue translates directly into teacher in English. And the Atlantean tongue, Tchit, means divine word, and teacher in the old tongue, you said a teacher. So that would be a teacher, a teacher. Also, close sort of really equally. This also means in the Atlantean tongue, divine weaver, and native in the native tongue still to this day, represented by the spider that has 8 legs. And it's easily seen in English, of course, the enormous Atlantean influence in our language and sound and phonetics. Really should be English and quite a few other languages really certainly representative languages today are having Atlantean influence and language within. The Toltec teaching of sound, and the Dogon being representative of the tongue spoken by the Atlantean times, the priests sort of the Dogon devoted sort of teaching of this old language, and then they use the symbols to assist to help also with ritual the fertility cult sort of really learned that they could sort of isolate and by cutting away, of course, and singling out, and then caste systems and things were created, and stories to cause people to feel above and below, sort of thing, and unquestioned of that, apparently. But the Atlantean word for a single made loop was the sound tua, and tuua, tuua, tuua. And the sound cutting sort of makes of a single loop or type of stitch in subatomic string and loop. We could be talking about strings as loops are made and this sort of thing. And from the whole, this sound tuua is the Egyptian word back in these days for a god, of course. And this is the time where the Egyptians began to sort of start practice of sexual mutilation of the boys during that period of time. It was sort of a bit of a fusion of fertility cult and Atlantean insight during this period of time, because there was a lot of calamity going on with cosmic, and then also pirating, and things were not sort of working as well as what they could have. Because it was like and of course the story of Babylon is really a lot about this as well. But the sound, phonetic sound, taut, in the Atlantean tongue, taut, this sound, also still to this very day, is the word taut in English, and taut even in Dogon, but also sort of means night, and also dawn, the dawning time, which is the hour of completion, and it was a sound taut, that in English sort of means wherever sort of something is taken the slack out of. You have a rope where the slack's taken out of. For instance, you would say the rope's now taut. But the Atlantean tongue as taught by the Dogon for time is unute, and u, which is a collecting sound, and which is vibrational, and u, which is a collecting sound again, and t, which is the sort of coming to some moment in time. And unut is in English, of course, minute comes from this, unit, minute. And back in Atlantean days was the word for time, of course, because U is a building and N is its vibration, and U again is the building sound, and then gathering, a gathering, and an S, and T is the sound of what is sort of bending and growing. And so the sounds are purposefully put to create the words we use, and the shaping of these sounds have structures themselves, and the shape itself of what's emitted has this within it. But it's too much sort of a coincidence, really, for all this likeness in English and Atlantean tongue, and going back into Berber and Egyptian and other tongues as well. But the Atlantean tongue, not to be sort of, because they're connected, but that language really has caused us to have a consciousness, all of us, which is universal, and where we're drawing upon the things which we have in common deeply, all of us. But we get minutes and units also from this unit as a word, unit in counting, and also taught and teacher. But the shaman really learned much from echolocation and listening to shape sound makes. And if the note A was sort of being skipped, for instance, making a pure note would turn the person back up again. And it could be because ferrous iron was toxic in the body. But 432 hertz, tuned to resonant A, playing the note of this A, shifts the ferrous iron toxin out of the body, which can be shown just by hair analysis and things. But the note C assists grow calcium and this sort of thing. And there's great deal of science behind the atomic structure and scale and notes and things, of the periodic scale. Yeah. Is this interesting, Lukey?
More than anything else.
Yeah. Well, the medicine person always was really listening in, to explanation being given and the effect that we can be feeling is being given to us. And this information now inside us once and for all time are being recorded and shaping our DNA and our awareness of where we've come from. But information could really be accepted, in only 4 ways, as we've been talking about in our program. And it can be accepted, certainly, and that's a loop. It could be accepted conditionally, and that's sort of looping. Nothing could be said, and that's acquiescing, and that's a form of acceptance. And that's the third one, which that third choice is similar to the first. They're both sort of an acceptance. And then the fourth is sort of a rejectedness of things, or a questioning of a paradigm. And in our communication, we really only have these 4 ways that we can accept something being given. And it follows with, of course, the 4, or at least 3 sorts of string theories, strings that exist in the types of stitches that can be. There could be a loop, which is integratedness. There could be a looping, which is sort of meta-responding, going over the same stuff. Or there could be cross sort of stitching, which is a crossing or over the information, where things sort of fall what's other than congruent, meaning that what's obscure or what doesn't fit, sort of thing, which that's sort of like a polarizing. And so S, like sound, is taught in the Atlantean tongue, being sound made as mass gets bent. And as it sort of finally comes to stop bending, the sound sort of is as it stops bending, as something stops bending, that's the sound that. So as something is bent, you're hearing, and then as it stops bending, it's and as it sort of finally stops bending, of course, you've got a sound and the home, just where the bending is occurring, the bend itself is the note B happening right there. And that's the place of home, B, and B as a sound is bending, and there we get the sound bending in. And it's more a explosive sort of a sound, but it's a bending. So the sound B, 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 is really the whole sound of something completely bent. Is bending, and B is where things are being bent, and is where it stops. So an upturned wall really was the cause of mass to grow in the space. And just sort of, we could eventually talk a little bit about a Nan Madol, which was used as a black hole to assist to help line the Earth up and create a Stargate system, which we've been talking a bit about program that we've been doing concurrently here that people can go to, but that we could talk more about this and have a program specifically about this if we'd love. But in space, a superluminal speed really of no mass or of no acceleratedness is existing, and insect-like sort of crawling exoskeleton creature sort of shape can be seen existing sort of made up of cosmic light on this level. And these insect-like creatures are what first emerges from this cosmic photosonic suits. And the moment of sort of sonicness comes, you've got movement and really vibration and things jumping and dancing around, and you've got life. You've got the ability to reproduce itself, and you've got a continued preparedness within itself, and you've got everything for sort of the satisfying qualities of life. What first emerges from this cosmic photosonic soup and sounds made, put into the heavens, as indicated, is this sound ke, or pew, pew, or ke, ke. A Q is like things getting close to the very top, and ke is filled up. And once sound is sort of filled up and compressed, the Fibonacci's become sort of compressed to be weightless, everything existing, and superluminal, and the word ant. A is like I in the beginning of everything, and is resonation, and that leads to P, which causes an exoskeleton-like structure to come to be in thematic in how sound creates shape. So if you could imagine for the moment a very, very thin membrane and stretched extremely taut, and you had very, very, very fine powder on that, and you subject this powder to sound, you'd be surprised to see sometimes shapes coming up, and like a family of people coming up and joining hands and around a circle, for instance, or you could see individual people or even couples dancing and other people dancing, you see. And you can see shapes of animals, certainly, but then you can see the shape of a butterfly or a fish or a vertebrae. All the shapes that you can see around us has a sound, a confluence of a multiple of vibration. So ant, even in English still to this day, is the insect, of course, with this sort of exoskeleton, you know. S is a bending sound, and T is sort of like a mass given somewhere. And then U or U or R is a collected energy, and P is to form space. It forms space. And we start to have I consciousness, I am consciousness as we have it. But A, meaning I, and spelling a word for phenomenon as, like, for instance, stupa, stupa, stupa. I guess the word that's being used in sounds, I hope, is getting sort of more solidly inside you as a shape and colour. But from A, ultraviolet is existing, and then G, you're coming down into red, as you can see these colours. But tetrachromatic people really have really amazing ability to sort of have this sort of fuzzy function. But information enough for you to sort of really get the picture really is this sort of very deep insight being taught that today has really been forgotten or about our ancient shape of my lips and tongue and voice box and diaphragm. And then the sounds are resonating, and you can hear how these sounds are resonating in the head and the body for all of us, and whether and to what degree, there's the chakras and everything is sort of being completely opened up through your voice and the practicing of things. But each sound is sort of really made with motor movement, and the post-motor motor cortex stores speech, production, and new information is stored in the premotor cortex area, in the frontal cortex, and that you have interest and pleasure to get into this area of the brain. Otherwise, if aversion was, that could have created limited brain function, but that's another story. But these are all activated and decoded, written and seen and listened and spoken, and a kinesthetic sort of language, which has an analogical component to it and how things are being spoken. And the volume of shifts and changes, things all are important as well, which this is something perhaps we can do some more programs about. But the energy and motion is meditative, and this is the ideal state of eye awareness. And this is neither sort of really a state of ecstasy or depression sort of thing, but it's sort of a plateaued sort of state. And this is transition that incurring by binding and bending and the force of the night and things going in the night side of life. And the dawn really is this heavy hydrogen being formed and the present. And what taught is really that ant sound came and then zap, and the skeleton with a fish sort of comes to us. And of course, before this a little bit, we could sort of see a dog, but the fish shape coming to us, the fish sort of comes very quick. This flying fish does straight to us, ever more quick to us on this invisible level. Consciousness really is entered, as a result, a seventh ray becomes broken and things become expanded and to become the eighth ray as a coil that splits this seventh ray to give gravity and electricity. And colloid of life and photosonic transform of strings are embedded. And then in colloidal biology, you can start to see colloids of life, of course, having formed, which are biophotonic little electric arcs, which is the smallest building block of life, which makes up a spore, and then that makes up a double spore, and that's the primary building block as a double spore of everything you see living around us. But by the string theory, if we can look more into this, very deep ancient insight really correlates. But I put animates what's weightless, that it can flow and vibrate and enlarge and begin to move around and even dance. And as a morphogenetic field, the colloid of life assemble into this blueprint and flock as a school, as a body, and even as a cell across space. And a red blood corpuscle can aggregate, fuse, and differentiate from these double spores, which it does, and this is how it forms, intestinal tract. But even as a cell across space, or a red blood corpuscle, which would be reverse differentiated from a fat cell in colloidal biology, through a process of aggregating, fusing, and differentiating, which doesn't require DNA or RNA. But that DNA and RNA and nucleic acid arise from these life forms, which are more corpuscular, but at this primitive primordial level. But as the polypotency is existing, of course, in the blood corpuscle, it can become anything, and it can be reverse differentiated back into blood. A fixed cell can be. magnetic field remains present and the same, even though the material of you could have come and gone. And on this dimensional material plane, having come and gone, yet, of course, this fourth-dimensional energetics of yourself, which we've been talking about, really remains fairly unchanged. But the perception is a matter of coiled ray duality sort of arising, and a binary solar polar completeness existing, and the compelling evidence sort of that's really left behind exists also in English language that's connecting us with sound and pictogram and idea in our own language. But Egypt and North America have, and the linking of all of this compelling evidence, we can increase our awareness to be more intelligent, to know how to protect ourselves and how to protect our DNA. And the shaman, by sound alone, is really taught to be able to see all of the interior condition and to read the body like a book, Lukey. Yeah. We've got a bit more time, mate. You there?
Let's see. Sorry, put my mic down. The clock says that we have a little more time. Yes.
Yeah. Well, the sound taught is a rectangular chamber in space. We've got 4 sides of the word taught, and it's open at the bottom panel, like an enclosure. But what you say surrounds the subject matter. This is what we're taught means as a sound and shape. But sound art causes jaws to form and an ant. This sound causes legs. This primordial cosmic biophotonic soup of superluminal sort of massive light slows down. And I create this. You see, Fibonacci fractals, the space of the dream catcher, housing sort of this beautiful rainbow of 7 colours, notes and frequency bands. Of course, 7 as it expands to break its sort of chambered seal in space, and all is superluminal and fast and weightless for this point, but then it starts to crystallise into matter, you see. And from this super fast time, things flow to grow, to vibrate, and to, without acceleration, materialise. And this simply captured by this third-dimensional appearance and here in this time frame, and impressed sort of space. But the morphogenetic field is impressed throughout space as a blueprint template, and light and sound sort of meet each other, and at this point sort of words are being spoken and are more, understood by the bees, the trees, and everything around us. But sound being made carries in its matrix the signature of its maker, and people are starting to tune into the trees are singing and this sort of thing. But the voice doesn't tell us much, because this is really the sound of resonating that's coming out of our body, and it's really carrying with it sound, and this soundness of the structure that's sort of projecting this. Yeah. But it's like a wind that's talked about by the Native Americans that relate to a plasma wind, not just sort of simply wind as we can feel it, but a wind the same as we feel senses on a plasma level, and that this is happening as I utter sound, you are it. And what is collected and vibrated is sense, you are it. And then in this shaman's mind's eye, for the second, the flying fish shape sort of materializes, and the sound fills up space, and then the sound goes to ant, and then trams, nummo. And these are sounds that are sung really in high pitch in the lodge, and are also They start up high and end up down very low. The sounds M is sound which is known, and its shape is really long, horizontal, or rectangular-like shape that you can see this in the lodge in your mind's eye. The shape opens up at one end, and at the other end it's sort of like a 45 triangular degree sort of oblique. And this is sort of knowing, the shape of knowing. The sound sort of used to grow nutrients, sort of more plentiful. There's a sound that's applied to soothe and affect emotion, an emulsify ingredient. There's sounds to clear pathogenic life correlate and build tissue, synchronize the brain, provide intelligence, to life correlate in the production of enzymes, which we sort of talked a bit about, and am as the sound is spoken as one sort of has this awareness as it sounds sort of being made and perceiving and perception is here, and I am is here, you see? So these are the sounds that are taught to cause a consciousness in even an alphabetical type of very deep insight and schooling. And then people did this through ways of song and ceremony and storytelling, yes. So pretty amazing, and still to this very day, this is how the Toltec teach and go back to places. Of course, the Dogons can even be said to go back perhaps 17,000 years, maybe. This is very deep, yeah. Anyway, I really hope everyone's enjoying this show. It's possible for us, as we could perhaps finish up a bit more with sound, if it's interesting, but we could be moving a bit more toward apparatus, which are our organs that we have in our sensory organs especially, and we have many more than just the average few that people have thought about and how they are being applied in syntax of language and behaviour, yeah. And in particular, we could be talking about integrated, being congruent, being associated in life, yes. And how does all of this come together, just put it fairly simply for you, yeah. But anyway, the more the shoulders are relaxed, the more the tummy is really nice and relaxed, and the more playful that you are within yourself, the more original that you are, yes. And this is the energy and motion that really does support really great wellness and everything, yeah. Makes sense, Lukey?
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. I wonder if there's a question or anything, at this point, or...
Oh, well, that would be like, I don't know, but I kind of have an off-topic question.
It's amazing, I think, the spellboundness as we have a eureka being in ourselves, I think as we can add something to something or take something away, it could be not necessarily in math, but that language really being spoken more in our listening as math is really a part being built that can produce speech and have a finer ear for listening, to the fineness of something, to see if this is capturing more the essence of everything or not. Yeah. I think that learning more about the senses is very amazing. But these are the sorts of intelligence, educational, in the native tradition, in the teaching and learning, which really was all about relating to each other and relating to the earth, and a great, very deep awareness of being just as a part connected in a web of existence, and everything being connected to everything else, and then looking at everything as a person's a family. So a whole metaquiescence is something which has really been adopted, which is even Chinese today, means, we're family. Yeah, pretty amazing. But there's a big uniqueness, of course, with the Indians of the west of the Rockies versus the east, and in their language. And the West Indian Rockies Indians have lots of Chinese in their language. It's amazing. And then some of that over there in the east of the Rockies as well. But then you have a Gulf Indian, Atlantean, very deep insight, going back even further, in the east, yeah. And a fusion of this Homo sapiens today, meaning we're related to each other. That's how people greet each other. The natives do, but they are Homo sapiens. Tankashila really has been adopted a lot, right? And throughout some Native America, most of the natives can be followed of knowing and having heard of these sounds being part of their tongue, yeah, and having an Atlantean deep influence. But I think what really impressed me was how unbelievable the medicine people were and are in their ability to communicate to the other conscious mind, and their training to assist to help the apprentice learn more ways to communicate to the unconscious mind of the others, yes, and to create wellness. So I'd never come across anything more sophisticated myself ever in my life. I couldn't believe such deep sophistication was existing in behaviour. And Cloud is really a major teacher that's behind movements in America here, certainly in human development. And one of Eckhart, which people could remember, that created Est, Dennis Becker was a teacher of Warner's. And I happened to be Dennis Becker's teacher, and Cloud happens to be my teacher. Cloud, of course, is the teacher behind a lot of neurolinguistics and things, and people be in that movement. And then Dennis Becker went on to teach people and formed LifeSpring, and so that's another human development training. And I went on and developed more, which we call whole brain functioning, which is the syntax that's underneath all of this, which is really more experiential-based learning. And we're really behind experiential-based learning in America, novels and wilderness training and ropes course and experiential-based training to assist to help to create a behavioural change. Yes. So over many years, there's some beautiful training manuals and things in whole brain functioning, which our people can avail themselves of. And then there's people amongst us which really do have a great sophistication, and there's training, one training a year at the moment that's happening, that Deanne Dominic does from Hawaii, which she still does to this day at the ranch, where we apply a lot of all this teaching and everything. But we used to do a lot with musicians and entertainers, teaching them to use song and have good stage presence and all this sort of thing. So we taught a lot of actors and people, and Cloud passed everything on to me over time, and I did a lot of ceremony, and she sort of retired to do other things and do more counsel sort of things. And anyway, so this is something which is coming to you today, and the Tankashila is this warmth and blood that you have within you now, and this is beyond anything historical, Lukey. It's beyond anything of the past, and only the sum of this which is present here now. And the beautiful sound songs in the ceremonies and everything that we sing, we would assist to help educate people ever more about eye awareness. Yeah, and we did this through teaching people about whole brain functioning, whole body calibration, analog sculpting, tracking, analog sculpting, tracking, analog sculpting,